Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Getting Started with Google Classroom, Part 1. I just want to go over a couple of things for those of you who are joining us for the first time in our webinars. There's like a 20-second delay between our live stream and what you see in the chat. So we have moderators in the chat, so if you have a question, the people whose names have a little wrench on the side, they're there to answer the questions. Thank you very much, team. We appreciate you. Our website, edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org, edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. Here is where you will find all the resources and everything that we go over today so that you can go back and take it in digestible chunks. We're here to help you transition through this online learning time. So I'm Tasha Burke-Peart, and we also have with us.
Hi, I'm Dana Rubenstein. So happy you're joining us today.
And we're going to go over a couple of things about Google Classroom. So I'm going to start off with basically the anatomy of Google Classroom, the beginning, the basic structure, the icons, how your students join your classes. And then Dana's going to actually talk us through creating assignments, and she talks about some forms in there and some the classwork page, adding topics and things of that nature. So we're going to leave you with resources, and we'll also leave you with this recorded video so that you'll be able to work with it and get your Google Classroom started. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and escape, and we're going to go live to Google Classroom. And there we go. Thank you. We're going to go live to Google Classroom. So this is your dashboard. This is your dashboard. Depending on how many Google Classrooms you have, you may see none, you may see one. I mean, hopefully by now you at least have a couple of Google Classrooms set up. These cards, just so that you know, can be rearranged however you want to rearrange them. We're going to go look at the top bar up front and then move our way down. In this section right here, the 3 lines, it's categorized by what you're teaching first, and then if you're enrolled in any classes, you'll see them there. The to-do is actually a very, very, very handy one-pager, so to say, of everything that needs to be reviewed, everything that you have reviewed. All of your assignments show up for all of your classes, but you can use this little drop-down menu right here to select individual classes. So you can get a quick snapshot of what's been turned in, how many students you assign the work to, and this is a great one-stop shop here to see all of your assignments. I do want to point out, though, the settings at the very bottom. This is going to come in handy when you have co-teachers, and we're going to talk about inviting co-teachers. I know a lot of us have administration as part of your classrooms, and you get a lot of email notifications. Okay, so this in the settings, please know, is where you can limit the notifications. You can choose it by comments or classes you're enrolled in, classes you teach. And also at the very bottom, you can limit your class notifications for the entire class. And this particularly would be for co-teachers. If you only want notifications from certain classes, that you can change. So again, notifications. There's 2 different ways that you're going to see settings, but this setting at the very bottom here, this is where you can change those notifications, okay? So we're going to go back to classes, and I just want to point out a couple of things that often gets people a little turned around if you go into Google Classroom a different way, meaning you try to go in from the Classroom folder, which will not get you to Google Classroom. All the titles are hyperlinked. So that's how you get into the class. The three dots that you see, this is how you can copy a class or archive an old class. Why would you want to copy a class? Well, let's say you were working as a team, first grade reading, working together, and one person created a classroom and you guys wanted to collectively have the same assignments. The other members of the team can actually copy that class, and then the only thing that you will have to do, which Dana's going to show you a little bit later, is make those assignments active. So the work has already been done. If you did it together, you would just need to go in and actually assign it. So copying a classroom can be very beneficial. If you have students, they would show up here, and this will take you just directly to the People tab. Anything that is coming up and due, you see immediately right here on the card. This is to open up the grade book so that you can see grades. Again, this is for classes that you are the teacher for. And this is the folder to Google Drive. Google Drive does all the heavy lifting, so they're going to create a folder for you in your Google Drive with all of the assignments that you create and all the work that has been turned in that is now in your ownership. And Dana's going to talk to you about that a little bit later. This plus sign right here, this is where you would join a class or create a class. So students would join your class with a class code, and I'll show you that. However, in this particular instance, there might be some times where you will see that some students haven't joined in the class code, and you actually have to add them. So I'll show you how to add students as well. So we're going to go into our classroom. And what you see are four different areas here, 4 different pages. You have the class stream, which is basically just that. It is notifications. If you want to say something really quickly, you're not assigning anything here. But as you can see, all of the work that has been assigned does show up on this stream. And once again, you see what's due and what's upcoming. So there's no reason for students not to know when things are due, because it shows up on their dashboard, and it also shows up on the left right here. This is the class code. And if you were in a normal setting in school, you would be able to broadcast this so that all students could join right off the bat all together. But since we're in a different situation, you would just copy this class code, and however you communicate with your students, you give them the class code through that communication. Classwork, Dana's going to spend a lot of time in classwork, but this is where you create your assignments and topics. And I want to point out, here is the Google Calendar. Every time that you create a Google Classroom, a Google Calendar is also created, not only for you, but also for your students. So by going into this Google Classroom, you will see, and let me take off all the other calendars that I have here, you will see your assignments pop up, all right, and the due dates pop up in the Google Classroom. And once again, this is just a link to that Google Drive folder that you saw from the dashboard page. So this is all the back-end work right here. Under the People tab, if you want to invite co-teachers, it's as simple as typing in their name. So if I wanted Rebecca to be one of the co-teachers here, I would just click her name and click Invite. So the same thing for students. You have all the students, if you're logged in to your, which you have to be logged in order to, you have to be within our domain in order to be in Google Classroom. So that's a really good point. Parents cannot join Google Classroom. You have to be a part of the domain .palmbeachschool.org or stu.palmbeachschool.org for students. You start typing in their name, and even if you know their student number, you can just and start typing in the student number, and they see it automatically populates and invite students. I need to show you this invite guardians here. What this means is if you have parent email addresses, you can click invite guardians, and then you can type in the parent's email address, and then they will get a notification to be a part of the guardian summaries. Sometimes you'll see that students already have guardians here because they were invited from a previous Google Classroom. But this is a good way for parents to keep abreast of what's going on. The grades, Dana's going to go over this as well, but this is a handy grade book format so that you can see the work that's missing turned in. You can grade work, and all of this can be downloaded as a CSV file and uploaded to SIS, and we have directions that we'll talk about. We're not going to get that level of detail right now, but just know that it is possible for you to do that. One other thing that I want to show you before Dana goes into the details of creating assignments is this gear right here. So I remember I had said you had two different places for settings. One is here, and then one is at the very bottom over here. In this setting, there's some really important things, so you want to pay attention to this. Number one is if you needed to reset the class code, you could. The class codes are just generated automatically. So sometimes you might get a class code that has too many B's and D's and P's, and you're going to want to reset it. You're able to do that right now. If you ever need to disable the class code, you can do that as well. So you have all your students in. You don't want any other students joining your class. You can disable the class code there. Under the stream, there by default, it's students can post and comment. And this goes back to that digital citizenship piece and setting your expectations with your students, because you're in a setting where your students do need a voice and they need a platform for expressing themselves. You might want to have those conversations first before you just completely turn off the ability to have them speak, or you might want to have some sort of a gradual release. Maybe you start posting and commenting at first, and then as they get comfortable with the platform, then you allow them to speak. But this is where you can do that under stream. One other thing that you can do is hide the notifications of the classwork on the stream. If you have a lot of notifications on there for classwork, this is new, but you can actually hide the notifications. And if for whatever reason you need to delete a post that a student made, you can delete that post. But if you have this checked, that post would stay visible for you. It's just grayed out. So that's a handy feature so that if you ever needed to have a record of something that you deleted, only the teacher can see the grayed out post. Students will not be able to see what was deleted. I also want to show you an example of what a guardian summary looks like. So here is a weekly summary. You see the students' work that was missing and that was due. And you will see for guardian summaries all the Google Classrooms that your child is involved in. So the parents would definitely see all the Google Classrooms in one guardian summary. So the last thing that I want to show you, so this was all, remember, in the settings, and the settings is at the top. I'm going to discard those changes at the top. One other thing that I want to show you is in the actions, in the event you need to mute a student, you can do that in the actions. So in this instance, let's just say I wanted to mute John. John would still get all of the assignments that are being posted. It's just that if you had it on, students can post and comment, he wouldn't be able to post or comment because he's on mute. And then you can take it off, and once you take that off, then he has all of the privileges restored. So I've talked to you a little bit about the dashboard, about notifications, how to limit your notifications. We've talked about the setting, the stream, classwork, people, and a little overview of the grades. What I'm going to do now is turn it over to Dana, who is going to walk us through actually creating assignments.
Thank you, Tasha. So now that you've learned how to work with the stream and add students and teachers, we're going to learn how to add content to your Google Classroom course. And the content is best added right here where it says classwork. What's nice about the classwork tab is that you can organize your content in digestible bites. This is definitely a best practice to use because it's easier for your students to navigate your course when you have topics. So as an example, I'm just going to scroll on down here. You can see we have a topic of virtual class meetings. We have a topic by the week. As the teacher, you can label your topics in any way that you want. Here's a unit on the rock cycle. So in this part, I'm going to show you how to add topics, how to add material to your course, add an assignment, and a question. Before we get to that, I just want to show you some examples so that you have a frame of reference of what we're talking about. So these topics, for example, are added, and then within a topic, you can add material. In this example, notice when I click on it, it unfolds, and then we can click on View Material to see it nice and big. This is an example of a daily check-in for students. We've been getting a lot of emails about how do I take attendance? What should I do? This is an example of a Google form that's embedded within the classroom, and it just has 3 questions. You can certainly use something like this or modify it to meet your needs. A drop-down question where students would select their name, a date question where the student would just select the date of attendance, and then a little question about how they're feeling today to bring in that social emotional element. If I return back to our classroom, when you click on the title, it folds back up. Down here is an example of a unit. Now keep in mind that the workflow for this will be the same on any topic or conceptual unit that you're going to develop. This is just an example on the rock cycle, but it can be recreated for anything. So in this example, started off with adding the standard and objectives. Just like in your classroom, it's always important to have your assignments aligned to standards and have objectives that your students know what they're going to accomplish in this unit. Next, we have an example for BrainPop. BrainPop is a wonderful resource. It is district-wide from K through 12th grade. All students and teachers have access to it. And in here, just added a few links of items related to this topic. Next is Khan Academy. This is free for all users and also added a link for students to watch about this material. Next is an example for Discovery Education. Discovery is also a district-wide application, K through 12, and it syncs right into Google Classroom. The key with this, if you're using Discovery Education, is that students must log in to the portal and click on the Discovery Education tile first. This will authenticate the Discovery Education login, and once that has occurred, the student would come back to the Google Classroom course, click on the Discovery link, and everything works. Sometimes if you put in Discovery Ed material and the kids click on it and it says they need to log in or it's unfound, it's because they need to log in to Discovery Ed first. And then since students would be working on all of those assignments independently, as the teacher, it's always important to know if the students are actually learning from what you posted. You need to have some kind of either formative or summative assessment. So in this next example, we have an essay, and this is an assignment. So in this assignment, when we go to the instructions, it is specific about what students will do. It tells them the different items they need to include in their essay. And I've also included a rubric in here. So a rubric is an advanced feature, but it's really, really helpful for students to understand the expectations of how they will be scored when this is graded. So we're going to be doing additional webinars on Google Classroom. This is the part 2 webinar where we teach about grading. So I highly suggest that you take a look at that. But if you'd like to explore, I'll show you where you can find the rubrics when we learn how to add content. So now that we've seen some examples, let's go ahead and learn how we can add content to our Google Classroom. So let's go back to our classwork, and we're going to work with this plus create button. Anytime you want to add something to your course, this is where you would do it. When we click on that, notice you can add several things: an assignment. If you have Kami, you can assign that as well. A quiz, a question, material. You can even reuse something from a different course, and you can add a topic. So to start, we're going to add a topic. And once we do that, we can create the name. So maybe I want to call this one water cycle. I've already used that one. So we'll call this the American Revolution. The topic is specific to whatever it is that you're teaching. Once you have that topic, you can click Add. And by default, your new topic will show on the top. However, you can easily scroll and rearrange and move this around. I like to have my topic I'm teaching currently on the top, and then the ones I've taught in the past towards the bottom. Also notice that we have a nice table of contents that's developed on the left-hand side. So since I just added the American Revolution, that's here on the top. But as students are working in your course, they can easily click on a different topic and go right to it. So for example, if I click on media literacy, notice it jumps right to that. That is one of the advantages of using topics because it creates this table of contents on the left-hand side. If you want to edit your topic, beside each item, you'll notice the 3 dots, the ellipse, the blueberries, the snowman, has lots of cute names. But when we click on that, this is where you can rename or delete. You can also move up or down from here as well. So now that we have our topic, let's add some material to it. We're going to click the plus create button, and this time we'll add material. Now, keep in mind that the difference between material and assignments is that material is one directional. So the teacher is adding content for students to consume, and they're going to work with that material, but they're not turning anything in. An assignment is different. An assignment is where the teacher can add content and expect something submitted back to the teacher. So an assignment gets work submitted back, whereas material is just posted for students to view and learn from. So to add material, we click on that button. We're going to add a title. And then you're going to add your directions. It's important to have very specific directions because students are going to be working through this content on their own. It's a different platform. They're used to having you in the classroom where they can ask you questions right on the spot. But in this environment of virtual schooling, it's not that way. This is asynchronous. So you're putting in the assignments and then students will be working on this later on. So the better directions, the more specific you are, the better it is. Once you have those directions, you have an ability to add material. So to do that, we click on this little add button. We can add something from Google Drive. You can add a link from a website or any URL. You can add a file. You can add a YouTube video. You can also create something right here within your course. This is how I created the form that I showed you earlier. So you can embed a Google Doc or a slide, sheets, drawings, or forms. So pretend like I had all that set up. And now we're going to look at the settings on the right. We have to decide which class to share this with. So this part is really important because it changes depending on what you select. Right now, if I only have one class checked, notice how here I can go to students. And if I want to only share this with maybe Dawn and Erica and John, I can do that. I have the ability to differentiate because I'm only sharing to one class. However, if I change this and I want to share this material with multiple classes, notice that now my students are grayed out. Now I lose the ability to select who I'm sharing this with. So this part's very important. You can share to multiple classes as long as you're sending that material to everyone in the class. Once you have that decided, you can also pick a topic. If you already have the topic created, you can just click on it, or you can create the topic right here. It's always a good idea to chunk your content by topics. It makes it much easier for students to find the material they're looking for. So we'll go ahead and click on our topic. And now it's time to post. You have a few options to post. Up here on the top right, if I click post, this will go to my course right now, and all students that I share this with will be able to view it. Or you might want to click on this drop down and maybe you want to schedule it. If we schedule it, this means that I can pick a future date. Maybe I'm adding a bunch of content in here, but I don't want my students to see this until next week. So I can change the date and I can pick a time of when I want this scheduled. I can also, on this drop down, save the draft. So maybe you're not ready to schedule it yet. You're working on something and you're still editing what you have. You can save that draft and then come back later and finish it. So for now, I'll go ahead and post so I can show you what this looks like. And here's our topic, and here's the material that we just added for the American Revolution. If I needed to edit that, I can click on the three dots, the ellipse again, and right here I can go back to edit and continue working or change something that's there. Next, we're going to create an assignment. An assignment is where students can submit work back to you. So if you intend on grading something, or if you need a formative check-in to make sure that students are following along with the work you're assigning, this is how you would do it. You would click the plus create, and we're going to select assignment. We'll add the title again. You would type your directions. And then you can also add a file from Google Drive, a link, a file from your documents, maybe a YouTube video, or you can create something right from your Google Docs, slides, sheets, drawings, or forms. Once you have all that decided, we have our settings on the right-hand side. We select our course. Remember, if you pick more than one, then you can't decide which students it goes to. So that's very important when you're planning your assignments. You can also give it a point value. By default, you'll have 100 points, but you can change that. You can also make it ungraded. If this is just a check-in to make sure students are keeping up with their assignments, you might want to make that ungraded. A due date is really helpful for a few reasons. First, it helps keep our students on par with their time management, but it also shows up in two places. Tasha had mentioned that if you add a date, it goes to the calendar in the course as well as on that to-do list on the stream. So I'm going to add this to-do date so I can show you what that looks like. By default, it will go to 11:59 p.m. However, you can change that if you want to add in your own unique time. So I'll have this due March 31st at 5 p.m. You can add a topic or you can create one right here. Now, I had showed you earlier about the rubric, which we will learn in a future webinar. But if you want to explore that on your own, here's where you would add the rubric. To assign, you have some options. You can assign it right now, you can schedule it, or you can save the draft. So for now, I'll go ahead and assign. And we'll see how that looks. Here it is. And notice how it even says due tomorrow at 5 p.m. Let's go back to the stream for a moment. And here you can see on my upcoming list, there it is, 5 p.m., the American Revolution. If we go to the calendar for this class, it will be there as well. Here's the Google Calendar. And I'm going to need to turn off a bunch of these. Just give me a second. Here's my EdTech classroom and 5 p.m. Let me refresh my screen. And it should show up there, which is really useful for students to keep track, especially, here it is, the assignment for the American Revolution. But imagine that your students probably have, especially middle and high school students, are going to have multiple teachers using Google Classroom. So this is really a best practice for them to keep track of all of the due dates. They're all color coded as well. Notice how this one is in blue, but if I click on this one, for example, it's a different color. So that's another way that students can keep track of everything that's due. Now that we learned how to add an assignment, we're going to learn how to add a question. Now, a question is a great way to get a quick answer from your students. And there's two types of questions. So to add them, we're going to click the plus create, and we'll select question. And there's a drop down. So you can ask a short answer question or a multiple choice. Short answer would be an open-ended response where students will type in the answer. And then in your instructions, you would just have them write or type rather in the blank below to answer your question. You might also want to add a file from your Google Drive or a URL for them to click on, or maybe they're going to watch a YouTube video first before answering your question. You can align this to whatever topic it is that you're teaching. You can also create something right here. So I'm sure you're noticing a pattern. Whether you're adding material or an assignment or a question, you always have these same items here when you're developing. Now, if I change this to a multiple choice question, now I can put in my options. And students would be able to click the answer. It's just one question, whether it's a short answer or a multiple choice. Once you have that, you come onto the right-hand side and you go to your settings. You select the class you want to share this to. You select the students you want to share it to. Remember, if you're sharing to more than one class, you can only share to everyone. You lose the ability to differentiate when you share to multiple classes. You can give this a point value, or it can be ungraded. Typically, since this is one question, it's usually ungraded. So you can decide what you want to do with that. You can give it a due date. Maybe I want this due on Wednesday, April 1st, and I want this done by lunchtime. And you can add this to a topic. Maybe I'll put this one in my daily check-in. If you have a topic established, you can click that, or you can go to create topic. This also gives you an option for students to see the class summary. What that means is that students will be able to see all of the results in a nice graph form. If you don't want that, you can turn that off. And then up towards the top right, we can ask this question right now, or if you pull the little drop down, you can schedule it for later, or you can save it as a draft. So for now, I'll go ahead and ask it. And then we'll return back to the classwork. And here it is under my daily check-in. How are you feeling today? And this is what it would look like for students. They would have a multiple choice question that they could just click and answer. So now we've learned how to add content to our Google Classroom course. We've learned how to add a topic. We've learned how to add material. We've learned how to add assignments where students can submit work back to the teacher. And we've added a question. So John, I'm going to turn it back over to you to see if we have any questions in the chat that you want us to answer.
I'm muted. Sorry.
Okay.
We have a couple of things that we can talk about in the group. The first one is the daily check-in that you showed available to everyone. I did let BJ know that we do have one on our website. So I did want to share that. Tasha will be reviewing the website in a few minutes. And she will show you where you can get that daily check-in for us. The question then followed up by others was, how do you do it if it has multiple due dates? So for example, you want them to fill out the form every day. You wouldn't actually post that as an assignment then. You would post that, if you want to scroll up, Dana, and show, you would post that as material. And that way it just stays there under that heading, and the students know you have to tell them your expectation is every day you go in and check in to the virtual check-in or the attendance, whatever you want to call that section, and that's where they would fill that form out. So it doesn't have an actual due date, right? That's what you would go with, right?
Correct. No due date. That would just be something that they can do daily. That's why one of the questions on here was actually a date question, because if this was my attendance record, for example, I would have the students' names. You can type them in ahead of time as a drop down, or you can turn this into a short question where they would just type in their name. Either way is fine. But then this date question, it could be used over and over and over for the next few weeks. They would just click whatever today's date is. And then what's nice about the form is that as the teacher, you get the results and they automatically populate into a Google Sheet.
Just remember that Google Sheet does not automatically sync with our SIS. So
Correct.
You do have to go in and still place your attendance in the SIS each day. So this is just an easier way to check in to make sure your students are there, and then you can go mark the attendance as you need to. This is another one. So basically asking, do you have to create the Google Doc ahead of time? And what Rebecca and I learned the last time is actually you don't. You can actually build it right there. Do you want to demo that real quick?
Sure. So that's a great question. If you have Google Docs already created, I'm just going to add this as material for now. You can either add an existing Google Doc by clicking add and going into my Google Drive, and I can just find something here. So if I go to my drive, this is kind of slow, but I could just pick anything and add it. Or if I don't have something created already, I can do it within Classroom. So I can click this plus create and I can add a Google Doc right here. Just give it a second. It will open. And once this opens.
Sorry, put you on the spot. I know it's a little slow when we're all streaming together.
So pretend like this was something brilliant that students would have to do. Make sure you name it. And once that's done, if I come back to my course, what's nice is that now I can select my course, my students, I can put this in a topic. I'll just throw this into my American Revolution for the moment. And, oh, I need a title. And once I post this, it will be embedded in the course. So if I click back on that material, here it is. And notice the name is there too. So here it is. If a student clicked on it, it would open, and whatever I have there would be available to my students.
Awesome. The next question, and I'm not sure if you guys know the answer to this, but the text-to-speech, we don't have that on our site, but if you go on to the Continuity website, they have one on every single page that curriculum has done which is that Google Chrome extension. That's really the only way is to get text-to-speeches through an extension that you install. I think Dana might have one.
So this is called the Can you all hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this extension, let me hover over it again. It's called Read Aloud, a text-to-speech voice reader. So this is a Chrome extension that is available within the district. And after this webinar, or if someone with the whitelist can go ahead and put the URL in the chat, that would be helpful. If not, I can do that later.
Yep. So just Google it. I put the actual words in the chat for you guys. If you guys can also, if you have any more questions, first of all, don't forget that text-to-speech is not going to be perfect.
Right.
Just so you know, Dana, and I know this isn't a forums webinar. They're wondering where the teacher sees the answers to the daily check-in. So basically, I'll introduce and you can show. So what you have to do is create your form first. So we are giving you a sample form on our site if you want to make a copy of that. Then when you go, so you have to actually go to the form. And when you're on the form, there's a results tab. So go ahead, Dana, and take over with that.
So yes, I just want to go back for 1 second. So in the classroom, each classroom has its own in Drive. So right here, I clicked on Class Drive folder, and that took me to this folder for my EdTech classroom. And everything I've done is in here, everything for that course. And you'll see there's a lot of silly stuff in here from practicing, but the form that you're asking about is this one, daily check-in for students. So if I open that form, which is in my folder for the course, up here are responses. Now, no one's actually taken this form, but if I had responses, they would be here. I would see a little number next to it. And when I click on that, it would show me the responses. So I can actually show you a different one that does have responses.
I was going to say, and also show how it can go into a Google Sheets for easier reading too if they have a lot of responses.
All right, I think this one might have responses. Let's see.
No. Nope, sad.
We're still spinning over here.
That's okay. But the responses will populate there. You'll see the number. But basically what you want to do is what she's going to show you right now is creating that spreadsheet.
So if you have responses, you can click on this little icon that resembles the spreadsheet, and it's going to ask you if you want to create a new spreadsheet, which I would say yes, create. And then if I had responses, it will open and everything will just feed right in here.
So each response will be timestamped. So technically you don't even need to do the date because it will already put the date and time as soon as that student submits it. But this is kind of your back end. So like each day at the end of the day, you would take a look and make sure each student signed in and then have your SIS in another tab, and you would then just enter their attendance.
Exactly. And we do have a recorded webinar on forums. So I know a lot of you
Correct.
are on the YouTube channel. If you want to watch the one from last week, it goes in depth of how to create every question type within the form, how to share, how to do sections, how the results populate. And it might be worth your time because it'll really help.
I agree. The question again is about that same form. The form that we created that's on the site is meant to be filled out every day. Every day, and you notice that timestamp column, you know you're looking for today's date. Did each child fill it out today? Well, we only have to post the form once and students answer daily, same thing. They can answer that same form over and over. Now, some secondary teachers are doing like bell ringers, they're calling them bell ringers, but they're having a couple of questions on that attendance form each day too at the bottom. So that's what's in our copy, in the one that we have on our site. There's a copy so students can actually then answer a couple of questions. So that can change every day if you wanted it.
Right.
Do you want to give out access to the EdTech classroom, Dana, or are we not doing that? The one that we have created?
We can certainly share the join code. I was going to open up, I don't know if people still had questions about forms, but did you want me to find one that actually had results?
No, I think that's okay. I think they understood to go to that. So the join code, if you want to, you'll join our EdTech classroom as a student, obviously. But you can kind of see how Dana organized the courses. I think Dana does an amazing job in how she actually organized the content. So it's really showing a student, because you're not there, you're not teaching them for that 45 minutes. They have to have that content to be able to go through and do it themselves. So please feel free to take a screenshot of that or write that down. We'll leave it up there for a minute. Tasha, do you want to share how they can find our previous webinars?
Sure. Before I do that, I just want to show some of the things that we're going to be talking about soon. These are a few of the subjects that we have planned in our future webinars. We do have a couple of guest speakers who'll be coming, especially on Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss Tanya talk about some hyperdocs. We have Brain Pop and Discovery. So all of these are shown on our website, and let me just pull that up for you. And again, that is edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org, edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. Here's our calendar right there, but more importantly, under the live stream resources, all the things that we talked about, just click on that, you will be able to get. So you'll get a chance to take a look at the previous recordings, any information that we've added. We have a student tutorial on Google Classroom, which is probably really good, and parents guide, and then it just kind of anything that we thought would be helpful for you, any tools, we wanted to include them. So as you can see, the daily attendance form ideas are here. You're welcome to grab those and make it your own. Our contact information is also here, so if you have any questions and you want to reach out to the team, you can reach out to any one of us. So thank you very much for joining, and if you don't have anything else, Dana, to say, then we're going to go ahead and sign off. Are you good?
Thank you so much for joining. I hope you found this helpful.
Thank you, guys.